everybody. This is Dr. Novak again, and I wanted to give you an update. If you watch my videos, you saw me actually install this particular 90-gallon aquarium. It's an SCA aquarium, and it's almost been 2 months since I set it up. I just did a test this morning. It has 0 nitrates, 0 nitrites, only because I think it's because I have a BCB basket that I started at least 2+ months before I got the aquarium itself, where I had established bacteria in the BCB basket. Anyhow, this is after about 2 months, okay, which if you watch my video, it's using if this is the first time you're here, I'll just run through it real quickly. It's using a Plenum, slow-moving Plenum, as I explained how I did it. Aquarium's doing fine, things are growing fine. I purposely put on the brightest aquarium lighting I could, which was 195 watts. I did that on purpose, have it at 100%, just to show you how well it's doing. I will do a video on how I set the parameters of that particular lighting system. That's for a future video. I'm still looking at it, seeing how well it's doing. This video is going to be on the test kits. Now, there are test kits out there that you can use that are as good or better than what you're using. And they're just as cheap, if not cheaper. And this is a big secret. Nobody wants you to know it. This is another thing that in this hobby, they prefer that you do not know these little tricks and secrets, because there are only so many manufacturers who make like test strips. Now, test kits are going to be very accurate, but you really have to get into your better test kits. Hannah, you're going to get into your Lamont. Most of them are too expensive for the hobbyist who's a casual tester to buy and get into. So what we have available to us is, we have test kits like this API, right? You've seen them. And we have the quick dip test kits from Jungle. Okay, and there's others that make them. Fluvo makes test kits and test strips and things like that. But these are all made by manufacturers, usually on the outside. The company themselves may not make these strips, and then they just label and make them according to what the manufacturer wants. No different than, let's say, your dishwasher. There's only one company, 1 or 2 companies that make them, but they make all the dishwashers out there for everybody to their specifications. The same way with these. They're made to the specification, and then they slap their name on it. And like these, basically are 20, 25 tests for $20 or whatever they would choose to charge you in the store. And these are what usually is available to the hobbyists, or what's told to the hobbyists to use. And a lot of people will say, well, test strips aren't that accurate. Well, that's not true. That's very false and misleading, because it's being done that way. People get on the internet and like to say that is because they want you to buy test kits. And Chem makes them. This one's API. API makes a big, huge box of these test kits. There are a lot of regions in them. The regions can go bad. They become old, just like anything else. These cost a little bit more than the strips. They're a lot more work. They're not as easy. And some say, well, strips, these are far, far better than strips. That is not true. That is a fallacy, because if you're really going to get into test kits, then you have to get into the professional test kits and get out of these hobbyist test kits. They're good, but they're not the best, and they're not the most accurate. Then you're trying to get into like Lamont or something, and people don't want to pay $50, $60 for a test kit, and they don't want to pay $30, $40 for the regions that go in these test kits. Okay, so these can be very accurate, but then Hannah makes some where like on your phosphates and stuff like that. But they do cost a little bit of money. So people don't want to pay 50, 60 bucks for a Hannah test kit because of the price alone. And if you do a lot of tests or have a lot of aquariums, we don't want to spend that kind of money on those kind of test kits. The most convenient is strips, and I think I did, I wrote about it years ago of how we tested strips and compared them to your test kits. And what we found out that some of the strips were far, far more accurate and did compare to test kits. But that was the hobbyist grade. And you can get a better grade, like a human grade. And we know that test strips are pretty accurate because a lot of our medical field uses test strips to test certain things out, like let's say diabetes. You could test with a test strip. These are made on a higher quality than just the hobbyist grade. Okay. And there are companies who've been out there for years and years doing this, and these companies are designed and made. They sell the strips to other people, and this is just the way the hobbyist is. The company itself, like Tetra or something like that, they won't make the test strips themselves. So let's just understand it. They're buying it from a vendor from the outside, and then they are putting their labels on them and selling them to you. But there are ways we can get around that, and ways you can save money and get more test strips if you want to test your aquarium. I have two right here. SJ Wave is one, and this does like 16 tests in one. Now, nobody's going to tell you this. Nobody on the internet's going to tell you this. Nobody wants to even show you this. It costs about 20 bucks, $25, the same as what you're going to pay for the API or Tetra or whatever. But this one will do 16 different tests. It'll do everything from water hardness to chlorine to iron. Now, in most manufacturers, iron is a separate test you have to buy, correct? Now you're spending more money. Copper, that's a separate test you have to buy. This comes with a copper test. It comes with lead, nitrate, nitrites. It comes with MPS, total chlorine, which you can test it out. Like, let's say if you have discus or something, you want to make sure they don't have any chlorine or chloramine in their water. This has the test for it. Fluoride, you can find out if your water has fluoride in it. You can ammonia chloride, bromide. Some of these won't make a difference for our aquarium, but then it'll have your carbonated hardness, your total alkalinity, and it'll have your pH. Like this one will read pH down to 6.0, and then it goes to 6.4, 6.8. These are about where we want to be at. You know, if you want a more acidic tank, we're going to be between 6.4 and 6.8. This one is used for humans. It's never going to be told to you. And it does all those tests, so you don't have to keep buying an iron test kit, copper test kit, to find out how much copper you got required. One test kit will do it. And it's very accurate, because it is made for human water, what we consume. Another test kit is this one, which is 9-in-1 Qguai. And this particular one is another one that I recommend, but this will do 9-in-1, and it does all your typical your pH, nitrates for you. It'll do your alkalinity. But this one, the reason I get this one is because it does iron also and copper. Remember, those are two separate test kits. So after you buy, let's say, this, You still, if you want to know how much iron you got, well, that's another test kit. If you want to find out how much copper you got, well, that's another test kit. Because copper can kill parasites, but it also can kill bacteria, copper can. So you want to keep your copper low and your iron. Your iron, that's another thing, is a lot of people, this will give you iron, and it will say like 0 to 5 parts per million. Usually in an aquarium, we want to keep our iron between 0 to 5 parts per million, but actually lower. We want to keep iron at about 1 part per million, maybe a little bit less. There's a lot out there about iron, but iron shouldn't really be that high. No more than about 0.1 parts per million if you're going to have an aquarium and you want it to feed it iron. That's why on this aquarium, I have a auto refill, and I put 1 cap full of iron in it, in the auto refill. So as the tank is going along and it has to be refilled, a little bit of iron is going into the aquarium at a very low level to keep it less, so you're not overdoing it. And it will stay so it doesn't oxidize the iron and become useless then to the plants. Comes in a bottle, comes with instructions, it comes with everything you want. It's a big bottle, and it costs no more than the test that you're buying at PetSmart, Petco, or any aquarium shop. But no one's going to tell you about this because of the fact of, why am I going to tell you about test kits that will do chlorine for you, nitrates, phosphates? Why would I tell you about iron and copper when I could sell you 2 separate test kits, right? Why would I tell you to buy this if I'm going to shoot myself in the foot and not sell you 2 more test kits on top of the test kit you bought? This is a very good test kit. It's as accurate, or even more so, than what you buy in the aquarium store, and it's used on aquariums. And this one, the one that's used for human, is also very, very accurate. Probably a little more so than what you're going to be buying. And I put this in a tube after I open it, but you can tell these test kits are a little more professional, and I'll tell you why. First of all, these test kits come with packages, and you get 10 strips in a package. Now, the reason they're in a package is because they don't want you opening up the whole container constantly, getting the air in there. Air, moist air, gets into your test kit and starts destroying the accuracy of your sticks. So here they put only 10 in a sealed package, so air will not wreck your entire 100 strips. There's 100 strips in here for the price, compared to when you buy 20 or 25 strips, okay, doing these 16 tests. They give you instructions on everything. So if you don't go off the back, they give you a little chart here, so you can write down milligrams per liter, which is parts per million. Okay, so, you know, I give you a little chart. You can write down what you want with this test kit, which is great. And they got an ebook you can get free by scanning this. But inside here, the book, they also give you another chart in case this one gets wrecked on the box. And you follow what you are here. And they tell you what everything is for. Is it for, see, since this is not really an aquarium as much, but they do kind of tell you it's for drinking water. But really, for aquarium, copper and iron are important. And we all know that. If you don't have enough iron in your aquarium, your plants aren't going to be as red as they should be. But you can't have too much iron. So this test kit will tell you whether or not you have enough iron in your aquarium. Free chlorine, that's something that we're not too worried about, because if you watch one of my videos, sodium thiophosphate can be used at 100 times its given strength to knock out chlorine and chloramines out of your water immediately. So that's something we don't have to worry about. But your fluoride. Fluoride's in our drinking water here in the United States, and you can find out whether it's out of the water, how much is in the water, what's acceptable. Fluoride is actually should be 0. So it's letting you know that, hey, you got fluoride in your water, you got too much. Ammonium chloride in drinking water. It tells you what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. Bromine, that's something we're not really too worried about, is bromine. Alkalinity, yeah, we're going to worry about that, and carbonated hardness. But it will tell you pH, and once again, it goes from 6 to 6.4 to 6.8, 7.2. So it has all these different tests in it, okay, that cost no more than the hobbyist grade test kits. And I can attest to it's pretty accurate. For what we have in this hobby, I would say this is going to be a lot more accurate. And the only reason is you have a package, you only open up 10 at a time. Now what I do is I use an empty one of these API, and when I open up the package, I just put the 10 strips in here, okay, until I use them. Now, anyone who has dealt with test strips or diabetic strips or anything knows it says on the instructions, once you open this up and expose it to air, as you go along, your test strips get less and less accurate. Somebody has also suggested on one of their videos that you take test strips and you cut them in half to make them go longer. So if you had 25 strips, you can turn into 50. Problem is, you're exposing them to the elements, to the air, and like I said, that makes them less accurate as they get exposed longer and longer to the air and humidity. So that's not very wise to sit there and take your time trying to cut them, and because you can't do it in an oxygen-free zone to cut them. So all you are really doing is degrading the accuracy of your test strips. And when you find out that you can buy off the internet, now these I bought, which I was really surprised that you can buy these. You can buy them off the internet now. You don't have to go directly to the company. And there is no reason you have to any longer go to the aquarium store or on the internet and buy what they call, from a normal manufacturer, Tetra, so forth and so on, to get accuracy. These two are very accurate, as accurate or even more so than what you can buy from aquarium manufacturers. Okay, so they're not going to be any different. They're just going to be less expensive because there's not a big markup on them. So that's what I want to tell you in this video, that really, it even says on this one for salt and fresh water that this is used. These products, they're both made in China, but most of the stuff you get is made in China. Nobody is going to, API, Tetra, or anybody else, is going to make stuff and actually make it in-house. This is made in USA. This is the liquid one, okay? But a lot of people are going to be outsourcing their product of something, some part of that product, maybe overseas because it's just going to be cheaper, and then bring it back in the United States, and then here we will package it and things like that and sell it to you. Have a distributor, because I looked on some of these bottles, like this, for example, this API, okay, and it says from Pennsylvania. But one thing it doesn't say, like the Seachem did, is it doesn't say made in USA. So what it means, it's distributed by this company, but that doesn't mean they make the test strips. They can make the test, outsource them. Very common, not unusual. The automobiles we drive and everything are outsourced parts. So there's no reason for something like this to be outsourced. That's why if you can buy test strips that give you more information than these, why not buy them? Like I said, you got an empty bottle, you put those ones, and why I say they're a lot more accurate is because they come in packages that you can only use so many of the strips before you open up the other packages. That keeps them fresher, and that keeps them a lot more accurate than opening, using a strip, closing it, and keep doing that. Okay, so that's why I said they're as accurate or more so than what we buy at an aquarium store. So the next time you go on the internet, I would highly recommend this SJ Wave and Qguai. This is a funny name. No one can ever say this. I always call it Q like a K, because I'm thinking they're trying to get this to sound almost like an aquarium. It really isn't. I think maybe if the Q would just be set as a Q. I don't know. If someone knows how to say this a little better, this is a. In fact, I try to even get the pronunciation of this particular test kit correctly, and it wouldn't even come up because of the way it's spelled. It keeps switching you over to differently because of the way they spelled it. But being made that it's overseas aquarium test strips, it's all written in English and everything. But if someone knows how to say this correctly, because I even asked my wife, I said, how do you say this correctly? And she even said it, and I said, Q walleye, or it would be koalai, and mostly it'd be koalai is how I would say it myself, but I don't know. We're not 100% sure if it would say koalai. That's how I would say it, koalai. But some people pronounce it Q as a Q, and I would just say koalai myself. So so if I'm saying it wrong, koalai, that's what it would be. But SJ Wave, and we have this one, koalai, and I haven't found anyone that could really say this much better than what I said. And if you know, leave it in the comments. Say, hey, you're saying it wrong. It's this way. But I've used these, and they're just another dip and read. This one's another dip and read. Go on the internet, go on Amazon, look these products up, and instead of buying the other ones, you can buy these. Like I said, there's over 100 tests in this one, so you're going to really get your money's worth out of this. And I'm not particularly sure. I thought this one here, koalai, is, it doesn't say. Sorry about that. It really doesn't say. Let's see. Oh, I imagine there's at least 25. Oh, 50. Here it is, little bitty writing. 50 tests. So that's even more than the API. That's double the amount. But this doesn't cost any more than, let's say, API or the Fluval or Tetra test. Doesn't cost any more, but you get 50 in this one. And this will give you iron and copper. Like I said, that's a separate test. Now you have to spend more money. So in order to get what you get in this, you're going to be spending, even at $20 a kit, you're going to be spending 60 bucks compared to 20 bucks that you pay for this. Anyhow, that's what I wanted to do my video on, to let you know there are other routes to go with tests This is something that is not talked about on the internet. I've never seen anyone do a video on any of these test kits. That you can buy them cheaper, they're less expensive, and they work just as well. And you can buy them now on Amazon. Luckily, we have the internet, and you can buy them on Amazon. And I've been using them for years. And I've compared them to like my Lamont, not the other stuff, but to Lamont. And they come pretty much dead on to what the Lamont is saying. So I'm just letting you, the hobbyists, know you don't have to go out and buy those real expensive test kits that you're kind of scared to use because they cost so much money that you want to test your water. And I just tested my water this morning, in fact, and this is the strip I use of the API. And of course, I'm showing no nitrates, no nitrites, about 6.8 on the pH with this particular aquarium. And it seems to have done very well. The plants are growing quite well. Like I said, I inject just a little bit of iron from my autofill, okay, whenever it needs to automatically fill up. But as far as the plenum, everything else, it's working just fine. Not a bit of problems. The plants seem to be free of algae. I may have a little bit of algae on my Anubias. My lotus are doing great. The little holes that you see in the lotus, that's being caused because I caught angels actually picking on it and popping out a little bit of it and spitting it out. Maybe they're trying to get something off the leaf or whatever. But the holes, I thought that my snails are doing it, but it's actually not the snails. It's actually the angels doing it. My pennywort is doing very good. It's actually multiplied and growing. Of course, like I said, I use CO2, but I do not use CO2 at the recommended 30 parts per million. I don't know what it is exactly, but I know it's nowhere for a drop tester to turn green. Okay, it's drop tester will not turn green. And I wanted you to know that. You don't need to have your drop tester turn green. I just use a fluval ceramic stone, CO2 stone for this, because I can take them apart and clean them. And they're inexpensive than buying the expensive glass ones. And how do you clean them? Because I clean my ceramic stones with bleach and just put them in a little cup of bleach, let them sit for a few days, and clean them off with cold water and put them back together again with the rubber gasket, and you're ready to go without having to keep buying those ceramic CO2 stones. And as you see, everything's doing great. I really have no complaints, but like I told you, I just spoke to a guy in New York, and he has 2 tanks. He started a 5 and 10 gallon or 16 gallon and a 5 gallon, I think. Now the one that uses the plenum, he's had no problems with at all. The other one that doesn't use the plenum, he's had some problems. He said he just had a little spout with beard algae, and he had to clean everything up in that particular aquarium. But he says the other one with his mollies that uses the plenum, and I think I've showed it on my YouTube video, he said no problems at all. Everything's went very, very smooth with that tank. It's just the one he made before he found out about the plenum had a bout of hair algae that he had to deal with. But he got that taken care of. Now in his big aquarium, his 75-gallon aquarium, that one, he's had no problems either. He's not using CO2, so his plants aren't growing great, or he's not even injecting any CO2 into it. And I spoke to him just today, and inside his sump, he has some ceramic blocks. He's got some other things in there, and he has some BCBs. And I told him, now get rid of all that stuff. Keep the BCBs in your sump. Everything else get rid of. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be making another tank. Like all hobbyists, my wife, I put this tank in here. This is supposed to go out in the lanai, but because of tropical fish, it still gets cold here. And the goldfish, and she still wants the goldfish out in the lanai. And like most hobbyists, when your wife tells you, hey, I still want a tank out in the lanai so we can put some nice, ranchus in. And, sometimes you got to bite the bullet and just do what the wife wants, So I'm going to put a 150 gallon out there, but I will be using a sump with that one. And I'm going to be using something a little different. I'll be making videos on that. But on that one, I'm going to be using a sump, and I'm going to be using a paper roller filter, because the sump is actually cheaper than buying one of these 88 filters. So I'm going to buy a sump with a paper filter, which will clean the water. But as my bacteria, I'm going to make some big BCB baskets and put them in there. That's all I'm going to be using. To show you, that's all you need. So, and then the water will flow into where I make my Dick Boyd's Chemi-Pure, my generic, and I'll have a pump. But for an aquarium that powerful, or that big, I should say, I'm going to have to get a powerful pump. And that pump's going to have to I'm going to buy a pump that pumps at least 3,000 gallons an hour, because that's a big aquarium. And with goldfish, especially the size I'm looking for at least 6 inches in size. I'm not looking for any small ones to put in that aquarium. But the thing I'm going to do with that too is find out from you, how would you like me to build the tank itself? Now, I already know what I'm going to do with the sump. I'm going to have automatic feed and stuff like that. But I'll be asking people, how do you want me to make it? Would you like me to make a plenum? You want me to have a bare bottom and just use the BCB? Would you like me to make a plenum and then put a digging guard in there, which you can, and then have maybe an inch of stones or something on top? That way, like goldfish, we all know, or like geophagus, goldfish, Oscar, they like to move the substrate, and that way they won't bother your plenum. They just move the substrate. All you have to do is move it back, because there'll be a screen going in there where they can only dig so far, and the rest of the plenum is protected from intruders. So that's something, when I come around to it, I'll be asking in the comments, how would you like me to set up? You want me to set up bare bottom and just work off the BCBs? See, I know that's going to work because it's used in ponds for over 30 years. So I'm not worried about if I just have BCBs and these nice big goldfish that I'm going to have any problem with it. That's not even going to be an issue. I can tell you that right now. But I'll let you guys tell me, how would you like me to do the substrate? No substrate, a plenum using a screen in it, because I'm going to have to put something in it, because as we all know, goldfish constantly like to dig into a substrate. Or would you like me, in fact, would you like me just put a small substrate, ½ inch or something, just cosmetically, so the goldfish have something to dig in? Because goldfish like to keep getting food, and that's why you really don't need any catfish, clean up catfish with goldfish, because they're constantly picking up the substrate, spitting it out, and siphoning out what food they want. So do you want me to do that? Just put a small amount in for cosmetic purposes and for feeding the goldfish, trying to get food off the bottom. I'll let you guys tell me so I can build it exactly the way you would build it, because I don't want to dictate to you that this is the way you have to do something. No, I want to show you different ways of how you can be successful by using what I'm telling you. If you want to use BCB only, like this uses the plenum and the BCB, I'm not having any problems with it, 0 problems, and it's been almost 2 months since it's been running. What do I have to worry about? The only thing I gotta admit, I take about 10 gallons of water out a week, and I basically just siphon up with a Python, siphon, and I take about 10 gallons out to siphon out. I haven't even cleaned the substrate or anything, and I just fill it up, and then add my sodium thiophosphate to that, right to the aquarium. And I tested it immediately after that. I got no chlorine, no chloramine, nothing. So it's been working out real good. So I don't know, for this one, that's it. I hope it helped you. You can buy cheaper test strips. You don't need to buy the ones at the store. Plus, they give you a few more tests with it. Like I said, If you are putting iron in your tank, I heard a lot of people say, oh, I want my iron up to 5 parts per million. That's really a little too high to have free iron at 5 parts per million. Okay. Try to knock that down to about 1 part per million to 0.5 parts per million on your iron. You don't need it quite up to 5 parts per million. That's high. And sometimes what happens is you have so much iron in the aquarium, you start running into a problem of bacteria, cyanobacteria, or you may run into big algae problems. Because if your plants can't utilize all that iron, and it's not locked in here like with the laterite, you could wind up with a bad problem of algae affecting your entire aquarium. On my next video, I bought laterite. People say it's hard to get. Went off the internet, I'll show you what I bought. It's a powder. It's a very fine powder, but there's ways of working around that fine powder that I could show you how to work around the very fine powder. If you put it in, you don't want it to be washed away. There's ways of working around all this stuff. That's very, very simple and easy to do. So this is the tank after almost 2 months. As you see, there's not any algae problems. Nothing's going bad. No sick fish. Temperatures up to 80 degrees. So you see it. You've seen me build it for you. The 20 gallons doing just fine. That's another thing I wanted to bring up. Besides using one of the brightest lights I could buy, okay, besides doing that, I put plants in here that already had algae on them, which a lot of people, oh, I don't want any algae in my tank, so I'm only going to buy special plants that I know will have no algae, and because I'm so scared of algae, I took plants from the 20-gallon, the Anubias, stuff like that. Some of the other ones had algae on them, a little bit of algae. But as you can see, it's not getting out of hand. And this is what I wanted to show all of you, that there are ways of combating all this if you do things right. Because think about it for a second. How do you have a pond that has direct sunlight beating on it and keep it crystal clear and not come up with these big algae problems? You know, that would affect the pond so you can't even see your fish or turn it into pea soup or whatever. Because you learn how to deal with these things in your aquarium so things don't get out of hand, so your plants don't grow algae all over them, even if you're introducing plants that have algae. And if you introduce plants into your aquarium, I don't care where you get them from, they're going to have algae spores on them. You may not be able to see them, but something is going to ignite those algae spores and make them start multiplying. Something causes that to happen, and it's an imbalance, and that's what I'm just trying to show you. It will happen. It happens to the best of us. Don't think you're a failure just because you do get some algae, but it happens to everybody. What you're trying to do is just keep it under control so things don't start looking bad, that you want to tear down the tank and start all over again. That's not the thing of it. And the other thing I also wanted to bring up is you don't have to load your plant aquarium up like mine. This is not dedicated to plants, but you don't have to load up with 70% plants either. Okay, I don't want to do that because I'm not into this hobby just for the plants. I want to have fish. You know, that's why I got into the hobby. That is what my specialty is as an ichthyologist, is the animal life that we keep, not the plants as much so. The plants are just part of the hardscape, if you want to say that, of the aquarium that makes it look nice. Now, my aquarium has a little tint to it, as I explained to you, because of the wood leaching out. And that may take months, it may even take a year before that wood stops leaching out that tanning in the aquarium. But it doesn't seem to be that bad. It doesn't bother me, a little bit of tanning that's happening. so I'm not going to worry about it. Anyhow, until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember, you can go on the internet now, buy the test kits that aren't made by the status quo, and they work just as well, if not better, than what you're using now at a less expensive price and more reasonable price for those test kits. You don't have to go out and buy what's on the shelf at your local aquarium store. You can just go on Amazon now and buy those test kits I showed you, and they will work perfectly fine for what you want. Be cheaper in the long run, and they take more precautions on trying to keep the test kits fresh for you. So until next time, this is Dr. Novak. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much for watching.